everybody. Welcome to another episode of Picture Shows and Petticoats. It's Elizabeth here, and this week I have another special guest with me, Marissa.
Hello, everybody.
I'm so glad you're here.
I'm really excited to be here. This was quite an episode to discuss.
Yeah, and I wondered because, when I asked you if you wanted to do this, and I asked you which episode you would like to do, and this one was coming up, I kind of figured, but we have a mid-season finale next week, so that's a big deal too. But I think overall, this was the episode that a lot of people were waiting for.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the episode where the story that you want to hear really starts, if that makes sense.
Yep. I totally agree. Now, before we get into it, tell people who you are, what you do, all that business.
Okay. Well, I am Marissa Mohi, and I blog at marissamohi.com. That's Marissa with one S and one R. So I just kind of write about writing and photography. I'm really bad at it, but I've recently gotten into it. So if you like really bad pictures, you can come to my blog and look at them. Also, if you like really kind of half-hearted recipes, because I kind of like to cook, but I also don't really like to put any effort into it because I'm always like super hungry when I start cooking. So I don't really have time to put in a lot into the recipe because I just become a rage hunger beast. So if you really like short 3-ingredient recipes that are kind of obvious that I never kind of matured past that college cooking age, I have some of those too. So
yes. It's great. I love your blog. And we met, just so everybody knows, we met in college.
We did.
Had I don't know. I think you were basically in all the writing classes that I took.
Probably.
Think.
Yeah. If you were in the OU creative writing program between 2003 and I would say about 2007-ish.
Yeah.
I think we were all kind of in there together, and there was 5 of us.
Yes. Yes, who were just, I know not everybody sticks it out. It's kind of crazy, but, we managed it. You keep going back like a crazy person.
Yeah. I really want to go back again. Is that
bad? You're just brave. I admire it.
I just like to waste money.
So we come to this from book reader perspectives. How far are you in the series?
Okay, this is awful. I've only finished the first one, and then I started. I know. No, I love the story. Okay, so
I didn't realize that. I thought you were
I have heard way too many spoilers from other people about the book series, and 80% of me doesn't want to hear spoilers, but 20% of me does. And so the 20% of me kind of goads people I know that have read it into giving me spoilers, and the other 80% of me beats them up afterwards. So I'm kind of right there, and I know vaguely kind of what happens. But it's on my to-do list. I have all of the books. It's just kind of, they're a time investment, really.
Yeah. Well, don't feel bad. I'm only a third of the way through the second one.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, okay. I just thought you were going to be one of the 9, you've just finished the 9th book or something. And because most of the people I talk to are pretty far into it, so.
No, I have a friend, and she works for the Metropolitan Library System in their service center. And one of her jobs is, to put covers on books and stuff and get them ready for the library. And she can listen to books on tape while she does that. Or I guess they're called audiobooks now. It's not 1992. Yeah. So, but she has all of the Outlander books on Audible, and she has listened to all of them at work. So just imagine if your day job included listening to Outlander. How awesome would that be?
I'm trying to start doing that actually because I have the 3rd book. It's on hold for me at our local library, and so that's going to start. I'm going to stop being just stupid and listening to podcasts all day, and instead I'm going to focus on doing that. So
yeah,
that's the plan. All right, so let's dig into this.
Let's do it.
All right, I'm so excited. We start with the title card like we do every single week. this one seemed to be, did it seem like innuendo to you? Like, did you think that? Because that was the first thing I thought.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just so you know, it's like it was a cat roaming across the table eating like raw meat. It looked like raw meat.
Yeah, I think it was, or like some sort of smoked meat or a pig, I don't know.
You should keep the cat off the table and away from the raw meat. So we get that, and our first scene is Claire and Frank's impromptu wedding at the registry office, the City of Westminster registry office, which is right there, central London, like main town. So this was interesting to me. I think we got a kind of a picture of Frank that I would not have imagined him deciding just suddenly to get married.
I think that that's kind of good though, because it's almost hard to imagine why Claire would have been with him at all. I think sometimes, especially in the show, so you have to kind of see that romantic side of him. Although, like, this wedding, although it seems super romantic and you spur of the moment, it is nothing in comparison to the other wedding in the show. So it's kind of like you see how romantic Frank is, and then like Jamie just blows him out of the water later. So
yeah, oh, poor Frank. Yeah, so they get married, and then they're running in to get married, and then we flash back, and I was so shocked by this because it's You May Kiss Your Bride, and Jamie is kissing Claire, and they're married, and I was really worried.
I thought that was going to be it, and I was like, really? We're just going to...
Yes. So, but mercifully, that was not the case. So we get to they just dive right in. They go from them, being declared husband and wife to Claire sitting in what we later see as basically an attic room at an inn, and she's sitting at a dressing table, just kind of reflecting on her current situation. I thought it was really beautiful too, the way she described it about, you forget your life, or you try to, and we get the string of pearls later, but she describes it as a string of pearls being cut, and the pearls falling everywhere and
going into corners, never to be seen again.
It was really good. And then Jamie comes in. And once again, I was like, really? We're doing this like right now? This is...
Yeah, you need like at least 10 minutes of show before anything is consummated, I think. And we hadn't reached that point yet.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is she's examining her wrist, which we don't understand yet, but she's like looking at her wrist and kind of touching it. The wedding party is still going on downstairs.
Yes. I think it's kind of interesting just how crude all the Scotsmen are. And
my goodness.
Like halfway through watching that, I was like, you know what? Every one of these guys is basically like Gimli from Lord of the Rings, or that's just how my brain is interpreting them. So,
no. I wonder, okay, so some of the things that they've said to her, because, we don't have a lot of knowledge of how these guys talk to other women.
Right.
But what we have seen, I don't think I recall them speaking this way and so crudely to other women, and at least not young, unmarried ones. And I wondered if they feel like they're a little more free to say certain things to her, even before this wedding happens. They say things to her. And I wonder if it's because she's a widowed woman, and or they think that. So they think that she has carnal knowledge.
Yeah.
That's all I can figure out, because they are so just base with her.
Well, I think it's also because when they found her, she was wearing her 40s clothes, which looked like underwear to them.
Yeah.
So, and then there was the assumption that she was a whore or a witch. And so now it's kind of like, they basically have accused her of everything at this point. just
Right.
from like her medical knowledge on. And so she's seen them all shirtless basically from helping them. So it's kind of, I think they don't know what to think of her and they just kind of have given up.
Yeah, that's true. Well, they're all waiting downstairs, and Jamie lets her know that no one's going to leave until things are official.
Which is really stressful.
Oh my word. It's like every week I say this, but this is so Game of Thrones, because that's like totally something that happens in that. And she's basically lucky that nobody's like sitting in the room.
Yeah.
Like, observing everything. Yeah. Oh, I just feel so bad for her. Because at this point, I don't know what everybody thinks going into this. I mean, it's not like, okay, this is a romance, but, and we'll get to this later, but sort of the beauty of it is that she doesn't love him yet. She finds him physically attractive and everything. And I think she has a respect for him, and he's her friend. I mean, they are really friends, and I think that's more apparent in the book. They are really good friends, but he loves her. I really do think. Yeah.
I think he does. I think that it almost kind of starts out as this sort of almost puppy dog sort of crush for him, just because he is younger than her, and she, helped him medically, and then he can kind of follow her around a little bit, and then it kind of builds into more and more once he realizes, how smart she is and how capable she is and how she kind of just doesn't take any crap from any of the guys.
Yeah. Well, she suggests a drink because this is Claire and this is what Claire does.
Yeah. And given the situation, I probably would have.
Yeah. I mean, you need some. She needs to be brave. So Jamie toasts her. It's really, it's kind of awkward, but it's sweet. And, she drinks to him or to herself actually, and then drinks again. And he's waiting for her to maybe join in and give a toast herself. But no, she just downs like 3 glasses of, I guess this is wine right now.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
Or is it whiskey? I can't remember.
I don't think it's whiskey yet, but there is whiskey later. So, and one of my friends, she emailed me before the show, just like, Claire should really be drunk. And she's just not. She drinks a lot and is, I don't know, maybe she's conditioned at this point. She's been drinking a lot.
I mean, she's been having some of Column's wine, so.
Yeah. She probably just handle it now.
Yeah.
Oh, so, she's clearly, afraid. Well, I don't know. She's not afraid of him. She's just afraid of the situation. She doesn't want to be there. And then Jamie tells her, you don't have to be afraid of me. I wasn't gonna jump on you. Like,
yeah.
Oh, Jamie, you're so sweet.
He's so perfect. Like, I don't know how he would have existed at that time period, but I'm not going to question because my disbelief is suspended,
Yeah, just keep it there. It's not worth worrying about.
Right.
I blame his French education.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I mean,
yeah. Yeah. And then she says, let's talk. So they start talking to each other. And she said she had some questions for him, and she asks him why he agreed to marry her. I thought this is a little weird to put that question there because they kind of sat down and had a chat about it, when that all happened. But I guess it's okay.
Yeah. Little reminder.
Yeah, and we all need that. And he says it was to keep her safe because, she's in danger. We get a flashback then to Ned explaining the law to the crowd of our usual suspects there in the stable about how they're going to go about all of this and how they need to keep Claire away from Jack Randall. And just how we have to follow everything. The law has to be followed just to the letter. Otherwise, this is not going to work. and to the letter in this day and age means consummation. So, and Dougal is just explaining to Jamie why that's so important, and that he can't be thinking about making any kind of pact with Claire and saying that it happened when it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any I don't know, any thoughts about what was happening right here? Any of the things that Dougal said?
I don't know. I'm kind of confused by Dougal a little bit in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, and I don't want to be spoiler about this, but his presentation in the show seems different than the way he was in the book. And so I feel like I never know Dougal's intentions in the show.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how much that is intended or how it, will really affect the storyline.
Yeah.
So kind of in that part, I mean, like, that Dougal has Claire's best interests at heart, because he mentions that, to Jamie at one point in the show, I might be jumping ahead too much, but that Claire took, 2 punches from Jack Randall, or, but, what would be next, so that they needed to save Claire. So I don't know.
I don't know either. And you're right. And I don't want to get too much into the book spoilery part, but we'll just say Dougal, his life is pretty drastically different as far as like his family, I guess, in the book rather than in the TV show. And I don't know if it's just because they haven't mentioned it yet, because that's safe to say they just haven't said anything about it. It hasn't been talked about. So I don't know. Maybe we'll get that later. But yeah, I'm very confused by him and his motivation. So, but it keeps me wondering, which is nice since I feel like I know everything else that's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. So he tells Jamie he has to go through with it. And, there's a lot of jabs all throughout that about, just like, locker room talk. That's how those guys are. Yeah.
That's a good word for it.
So when we flash back then to Jamie explaining this to Claire, that it was to keep her safe, she very visibly warms to the idea that he did it for that reason. I just loved the way that looked, that shot whenever they first come back. She's standing on one side of the room and he is sitting down on the other. And it was just so great because like they're so close, but they're so far, and there's so much that has to happen to, bridge that gap. But then Claire does it really quickly and she just walks across the room. So good for her. And she sits down, and this is my absolute, I think, favorite, just tiny little moment in this episode is when she sits down and takes his hand.
Yes.
Perfect.
And then you have that moment where they're slowly leaning in, and like you're like, oh, is it gonna happen? Is it gonna happen? And then Claire's like, tell me about your family.
It was great. And his face, he looks at her and then he just laughs, and it's this really natural, like, we're both nervous here, and we kind of have to get through this together, and whatever that's going to take, we need to do that. And it's great because then it just kind of leads into this really long hours and hours of conversation. And we see that because it gets dark.
They covered that really well. Like, because I remember reading it all in the book and thinking, like, man, this is their wedding night, and they have just had the longest conversation ever.
Yeah, they're just like sitting on the bed holding hands, just talking, and like him giving her all of his family history. And yes, but they did cover it very well, for brevity. But it's great because it just lets you see how their relationship works, because they are friends and they've been on the road with each other for a long time now, weeks. So you kind of have to fill that in, like have your own little head canon going on or whatever, but especially if you've not read the books. I just thought it was fantastic. But then we get visitors. Rupert
Yeah.
and Angus bust into the room. And they observe that both of them are still wearing their clothing. So they're like, this is not how you do it. You have to get with the program, Jamie. Yeah.
I like that the mention, or, like, oh, you still have your clothes on? And then one of them is like, oh, you can still do it with your clothes on. You don't have to take them off. And then he's like, well, I know that. And it's almost like 15-year-old boys talking.
Oh, they really are. But I love these guys because, I mean, they're comic relief in every episode. But this episode is so full of tension. You have to have these things just to kind of break it up. Because it's palpable. These
like
I was dying sitting in my living room watching it. Oh my goodness. So he ushers them out. There's a number of comments made about, can we not just get a look?
Gentleman, by the way.
Oh, my goodness. He's wonderful. And he's just, I think the reason he's so great is because he's just so different from all the other guys that we see around.
Right.
They're all pretty bad.
And he always says the right thing, always, Yeah.
Pretty
magical.
Oh, I know. I will have to tell you, though, I don't care so much for his hair right now.
Yeah, it's a little bit...
Like, he slicked it back for the wedding. Not into that.
No,
but we're about to fix that. So
right.
So Claire, once again, good for her. Getting rather late. Perhaps we should go to bed. And this was just brilliant acting. Sam Heughan is great. Says to sleep. No, sorry. Or to bed or to sleep. And just raises his eyebrow. And a lot of this was, just so you know, I did pick up the book today and I went through and I reread the wedding and the wedding night and everything just so I would remember. Not that I'm going to bring too much of that into this, but they really were pretty faithful to it. So I appreciated that. And
that's such a good line. I mean,
I know.
That's like to a T, really.
Yeah, if you haven't seen, go look at his face whenever he says that. It's just, you have to see it. And Claire's just like, well. And then Jamie, being smooth as he is. Either way, you'll not likely sleep in your corset, so I'll help you with the laces and such. That's what he says. Oh,
which was good, because that dress was really smashing Claire's boobs.
Oh, can we please talk about that dress? Oh,
yeah.
My. I mean, it's not the dress.
It
it's
so
technically
pretty.
your underclothes. But that corset was awful. This one's tighter than any of the other ones have been, like, the whole time.
Yeah.
Looked painful.
Yeah.
I think I would have been one of those women that, like, died from wearing a corset. Like, how your ribs, like poked into your lungs and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to handle it. I mean, like, most days I can't wear jeans. So, like, I don't know how people wear corsets.
I understand. Yeah. So that kind of, her, initiating in one way and him in another kind of at least gets them to the same side of the room again, which is kind of what they keep dealing with. Things kind of get started right there. So he finally leans it. Now they've kissed once already, even though I think her memory of it is pretty fuzzy. And so he kisses her and she's, pretty startled by it. And she says, "Where'd you learn to kiss like that?" So I was a virgin. I said I was a virgin, not a monk.
I like that line. Was that in the book too?
Yes, it is.
Oh, snap.
I know. And actually the next part is too. He says this all at one time. "If I find I need guidance, I'll ask." And then there we go. So, it's just, this is the let's get this done and out of the way part, and I think that the way that they did this, okay, it's like, I don't know, guess you could maybe call it like typical wedding night stuff, because it's just, he's crushing her. She's like, oh, you're crushing me. I can't breathe. You know, that. Oh. And he's a big old dude.
Right. Like, who deals with horses all day. So.
Yeah. And he doesn't have well, I mean, it's not that he doesn't have a clue, because he has a point. He's like, if I need some guidance, I'll ask you. And before we know it, everything's done. Mm-hmm. And his face, her face, it's all kind of great. Yeah. Oh, by the way, he left his boots on.
I didn't even notice that.
He left his boots on.
I will have to rewatch it for that. Oh, that's fantastic. That's very, very Jamie pre-Claire, if we will.
Oh my goodness.
Jamie.
I don't think I know. I know I didn't notice it the first time, but when I was rewatching, I caught that. I was like, wow,
that's awesome.
Well, and then we go right into Jamie's barnyard thoughts.
Yeah.
Oh, he says he has to admit something, or he wants to say something to Claire, but he decides better of it. And he's like, oh, come on, tell me. He says, you'll laugh at me, which is really precious. He's like, no, I won't laugh at you. And then he basically describes to her that, he's been around a, farm and with the horses in the stable, and he didn't really know the way that things were done. Thought it was what do you say? Back.
What was it?
Back to front.
Behind her, not front.
I think he said, I thought it was done back to front, and then she laughs at him.
Even though she says she wouldn't, but that's married. So.
It's okay. It's really kind of precious. So. I think is it here? Yeah, where he asks her how she felt about it and everything. And, this is where, like, all the guys, all their advice comes in.
Oh, yeah. They're awful, terrible.
Oh, my goodness. Now, they kind of left the exact line out. I'll go ahead and say it because it's from the book and it's pretty great. Because he was like, well, Murtaugh was right about that. He says, Murtaugh told me that women don't particularly enjoy it, so it's best to just get it over with as quickly as possible. She's like, what?
Yeah.
And we get all of their, well, later, I think we hear more of it, but basically he has been educated by all these guys downstairs, and they are not the best.
No.
It is like the equivalent of talking to like 14 or 15-year-old boys about it.
Yeah.
So she gets up. She's kind of suddenly, I think this is the part afterward where she really starts thinking about, even though I don't know that we got like a voiceover or anything, but I think she's thinking about Frank.
Mm-hmm.
And then she decides she needs some food to eat. And she says she feels like, this is in her head, she feels like a bigamist and an adulteress. And she's guilty for enjoying it because that's the thing. She did tell him that she did enjoy it. And so she gets up to go downstairs and get some food without thinking, like, there are dudes downstairs and you're in, like, your shift. They've already seen her like that once before.
Dudes, but, like, partying dudes.
Yeah, like drunken men. And there's nothing but men down there. Unless it's, Ned's lady, but we'll get to that later. And she opens the door, and then of course, it's
rocket laughter.
Hooting and hollering. Everybody's congratulating them, and how mortifying. Well, Jamie kind of saves her and puts her back in the room and goes downstairs in his shirt and his boots.
Yeah, I forgot it was just his shirt and his boots.
Yeah, to get some food.
That's so awkward. This is kind of off topic, but was there a time in the past where, like, it was just okay to not walk around with, like, without your kilt or your pants? Like, because Jamie seemed fine with it.
I don't know. You know, in the book, he put his kilt back on.
Yeah.
And there was no shirt. The kilt was back on. But yeah, I don't know. I thought it was pretty great. And him and his boots. Oh my gosh. So then, you know, all the guys are saying things. A lot of them have really terribly rude things to say.
Yeah.
But Murtaugh, and I love this about him, he just kind of like looks at him and just slaps Jamie on the back. Like, there you go, dude. Because he's like the best one of them all, because he won't say anything terrible about Claire like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
The most gentlemanly of the rogues.
Yeah. Then Dougal advises Jamie, you know, because he's like, Jamie's going back upstairs. He's taking food back up to Claire. And Dougal is like, you know, you don't want to appear too eager to get back to her. You don't want her to think that you want to please her in any way. And Dougal, you dummy.
Right.
I mean, but he's in something's up there. So then we flash back. I'm glad they kind of skipped over that. It's just Jamie back in the room, and he and Claire are eating whatever food he brought back up there. And he has told her all of this information, everything that happened downstairs. And she says, well, what did you say back to that? And he says that he was completely under her power and happy to be there.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Because he's perfect.
Jamie.
So then she asks for more whiskey, because that's what you do.
Yeah, right? I mean, might as well just keep drinking. You didn't really... Like, she talked about not remembering all of the wedding that day, but she's not going to remember the wedding night either, so...
in reality, I think there would be more puke here, because she has... Definitely. Oh.
You can't mix, like, wine and whiskey like that, especially, like, old-fashioned wine. That's terrifying.
My gosh. So he gets her more whiskey. And he's probably wondering at this point, who have I married?
Right.
And then he tries to touch her hair, and she kind of bristles. Oh, I felt bad for him.
I know, and I was like, oh, come on, Claire, he's so much better than Frank.
I mean, at least I guess that's making it, you do kind of have to keep reminding people that Frank exists, and that she's not just eagerly jumping into bed with this new man.
Yeah.
I mean, she does think about him, even though I don't think about him.
Right.
I don't care about Frank at all. So he then, I don't remember. I mean, I don't know what the phrase is, but in Gaelic, he calls her my brown-haired lass.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh. And then his description of her brown hair is
so like, poetic.
I'm like dead.
Yeah. I mean, if a guy ever said that to me, you know, I would break up with my boyfriend immediately and follow him to the ends of the earth.
It's so good. And as a woman with brown hair, I really appreciate it.
Right?
Yeah. Well, then after all his sweet words, she like changes the subject and was like, so where'd you get the new kilt?
Claire, you're such a buzzkill.
She can't handle it. It's because she likes it. She's just not admitting it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so where'd he get the new kilt? And we get a flashback to how all of that happened. Let me just take a moment. How did you feel about how they paced this? Like how they did the non-linear thing?
I liked it. And I mean, it's like you said earlier, they had to cut it up just because if you had that sort of sexual tension for, 45 to 50 minutes, I don't think anybody would have been able to handle the episode just because you're like at a 10 the whole time. You need to have those peaks and valleys. So I think it was really good, but I mean, every time they did it, I wanted to hurry up and get back to Claire and Jamie just because, I mean, that is where the story is of that episode.
Well, so it turns out Murtaugh's the one who found the kilt. They're in the Fraser colors, which I don't believe, spoiler, don't actually match the colors that are described in the book.
Oh, I didn't notice that. You are catching all the things.
Well, it's just because I picked it up today. And he got it from a widow whose husband has been dead for a long time, but he had to agree to return it by like the next day or something.
Yeah, something weird like that.
Yeah, so that means she's probably got like something dressed up like her husband somewhere in her house. You know, it's probably something really creepy.
That's the Southern Gothic writer in you right there.
I know. I can't help it. Everybody's got somebody in the basement, right?
Yep.
So Jamie's talking about how, he says, I just plan to be married one time and I want to do it in a way that would make my mother proud. And his mother is no longer living. And so he asks, and I don't remember this connection from the book, so I'm just going to go into it like anybody else who doesn't know what's happening here. He asks Murtaugh what he thinks of Claire, and he says that she'll do. And then he asks if he thinks that Ellen, his mother, would have approved. And Murtaugh's like, he's a little bothered by this. He asks if he looks like a gypsy or someone who's able to commune with spirits. And then he asks for Jamie's brooch and just immediately changes something in his face. And he's smiling and holding onto this brooch and starts talking about Jamie's mother's sweet smile. And it was really precious.
I know. Because, you expect almost at that point that there would be more locker room talk, like, why do you care what your mom thinks? It's all about your wedding night, elbow, nudge, nudge. But no, it was so sweet, and, it kind of, I don't want to sound cynical, but kind of gives you hope for the male species that, they aren't all locker room talk, that they are sweet and emotional and deep,
Yeah. And I got the feeling, and like I said, I don't remember, I'm probably missing something important, but it almost seemed like he was in love with Jamie's mother.
Mm-hmm.
And then after he says all that about his, Jamie's mom's sweet smile, the way he acknowledges it, the way he approves of Claire, he says Claire's smile is just as sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a great guy.
Yeah.
So then we're back in the room. And Claire is surprised that Murtaugh had that kind of romantic streak in him. She didn't expect it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they start talking about how the wedding all came together, how Dougal made that happen. Because, with all the talk, Jamie, he did set some conditions. And Dougal said it would be easier to kill them both, which I guess was an option. But
I love Dougal.
I know I really do like him too, and my friend Ollie loves Dougal. So, and if she's listening right now, yeah, I love it. I love what his conditions were because they really had nothing to do with him and everything to do with her, even though I know he was saying that it was all about him having the wedding that he thought would make his mother proud.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things, I think, were for Claire.
Yeah.
He said he wanted to be wed properly in a church by a priest. And, oh my, this was an interesting thing to have to deal with.
That was probably one of my favorite parts of the episode.
Oh. So they find this priest who's, does he have the flu, a cold?
Something like that.
He looks
They pull him out of bed.
Yeah, he's in bed, 10 o'clock in the morning. They have to pull him out of bed. He says he won't do it because the banns have to be read and have to be read for 3 weeks in a row. And, and this, I Doesn't this thing still happen? I think it still happens. Up there. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but
I think it does. I don't know if it's as formal.
Yeah, it's not like a church thing like it used to be, like not so much like that, but I read enough of these books, and let me just tell you, like, this is a book set in Scotland, the bands always get in the way. Like, people always need to get married, and they need to get married that day, and because otherwise somebody shows up and is like, hey, no, this can't happen. But
I will remember that for plot purposes when I write my Scottish novel.
It's very important. So they get into this scriptural throwdown.
That was awesome. It was like battle rapping, but with scripture.
It really was. And then the one kid is like just spouting it off, and the guy's like, that's not the right verse. And he's like, well, it's in Hebrews. And he's like, you don't just get to say it's not, you have to know what you're talking about. It was fantastic. But then Dougal kind of hones in on what can get this done, because the guy's like, you can kill me, whatever. At least I won't have to do another sermon in this place. And money. Basically money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he promises him new windows if they'll do it. And the guy like doesn't have another word to say. He's like, all right, give me some windows. I'll do a wedding for you.
This afternoon, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Now our second condition was a ring.
Mm-hmm.
Totally thrown off by this based on my book knowledge, but I'm just going to leave it alone.
Yeah. I mean, like, on the one hand, I was kind of disappointed in that, but on the other hand, I found out today that on the Outlander website, you can buy a replica of the show ring, and it's only $250. So
I know, I saw it, but it's like basically a hammered nail.
Right.
For $250. Like, I can probably make you one. So,
yeah.
But
maybe I'll take like a metalworking class just so I can make my own.
There you go, and I'm sure you can find one locally to do that. I wonder what's going on here, because it seems to have some sort of significance. Rupert and Angus, our favorite couple, they show up to the blacksmith, and they ask to have a ring made out of a key. I love this blacksmith. I don't know why, I just do. And they're talking about, now I don't even remember the words, but basically they need certain parts of the key left intact.
Right.
Just the ring made out of another part of it. So it sounded like they need the key to still be able to unlock something later. That's what I took from it.
Yeah. And I was wondering if they were going to make it like, maybe the key to Jamie's family's historical home or something like that.
Well, I feel like it's got to come back like that. It's going to be like his mother's jewelry box or something of that nature. But who knows? And we'll probably have to wait like 6 months to find out.
Dead by then.
So, but then Claire asks about the key when we flash back to the room, and he says, "Oh, it's just," he brushes it off, but it's very clear that it means something.
Right there at that part, like he says, "Oh, it's just something I had in my sporran." And I was watching this episode with my mom, and she was like, "Is sporran Scottish for fanny pack?"
Yes,
like,
it is.
Yeah. Yes, it is, Mom.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, great. Okay, the third condition, most important one of all. No,
absolutely.
Yeah, the dress.
And I mean, up until this point, you've seen kind of pieces of the dress, but you haven't seen all of it. And I think that, like, when they kind of discuss this condition, it's really nice that you get to see all of it and kind of like how big a condition it actually was for them to get it,
Yeah, it took some work. And poor Ned Gowan just sacrificed himself to get that dress. He goes to a brothel, and they find out like the madam there, she has this dress, this huge dress that she brings out, and it's all covered up. She says it's never been worn, and it's a good thing because she says that no woman should wear another lady's dress on her wedding day. and explains how they came to have the dress. It was a lordship who came by and I guess had gambled away all of his money, but still desired their services and decided to pay for them with a dress that he had bought for his wife.
Mm-hmm. Like you do.
Oh, what a gentleman. So then Ned's like, okay, we'll take it. And opens up his coin purse and starts jangling those coins around. And did you see the looks on those ladies' faces?
They just perked right up.
Whoa, we gotta...
All open space, sir.
Yeah, the madam, indicates to one of them, like, go ahead, just keep him busy. Like, it'll take us a while to wrap this up. Oh, Ned.
I really like Ned in the show. Like, in the book, I don't think I thought about him very much. But, like, in the show, I really like him.
Oh, that's great. So, then we go back to the room, and Claire is just hardly believing it at all. And Jamie says, well, it's exactly how Ned told it to me. And we mention again how she doesn't remember very much of the day. And then Jamie mentions to her that the prostitute was there at the wedding, which now I actually remember from she was in that first, when they were showing everybody kind of clapping and cheering after they get married.
Right.
She is there right there on Ned's arm. So.
Oh, Ned. We have to talk about your choice in wedding dates, sir.
Oh, goodness. Oh, well, okay, so Claire doesn't remember the wedding. She doesn't remember very much at all. She remembers a little, and she says that. But then we get this speech from Jamie that...
Again, Jamie's perfect.
It's so good. I wrote it down, and I will read it now.
Read it.
I remember every moment, every second. I'll never forget when I came out of the church and saw you for the first time. It was as if I stepped outside on a cloudy day, and suddenly the sun came out. Oh.
Oh, so good. And then just the way that scene went, when she takes, does she have a cloak on, I think, or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she removes that, and then you see this beautiful dress that was clearly worth more than the shilling that Ned Gowan paid for it. But, it's just so pretty, and you kind of see her with her kind of deer in the headlights, so what am I doing here sort of face, but she still looks so pretty.
It was just great. And the sun does actually come out. It's like the clouds just went away. And that part in the book is actually really good too. He's pretty good with words there. Mm-hmm. And then he comes over to her, he bows and says, what was it? Your servant, madam. Here I am.
Yeah.
And he's all, decked out in his finery, looking nice, even though I'm not into the slicked back hair, but
no,
can't have it all. And then she's like, I can't marry you. And what's happening here? And that she can't marry him because she doesn't know his name.
Which is a legitimate concern.
Yeah, you should probably know. I mean, she knows his name is Jamie, but she's been calling him Mr. McTavish the whole time, so that's not going to work. Would you like the honors of revealing our guy's name?
He is Jamie Fraser, and he has 8 million middle names.
It's James Alexander Malcolm Mackenzie. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a mouthful. And she's just plain old Claire Elizabeth Beecham.
Mm-hmm.
And she sticks out her hand to shake his hand.
Shake his hand.
Oh, Claire. Well, now it's time. It's happening. Mm-hmm. And she, as they head into the church, she realizes she has her ring on. And so she pulls that off and then tucks it into her dress. And it's really a wonder it somehow stays there.
Well, I mean, that corset was tight.
That is true. It was very tight.
I'm surprised it didn't fuse with her sternum or something throughout the course of the wedding. Like,
I watched the behind the scenes on it, and that dress, yeah, she was just as uncomfortable as she looked. Mm-hmm. So we get the vows, which are gorgeous. This whole thing is gorgeous. Like,
so pretty.
There's candles everywhere.
I want an 18th century Scottish wedding.
I know, I do too. Oh, it's great. And then they do the blood vow, which takes Claire by surprise because someone cuts her wrist open. And they put their wrists together, they bind them together, and they do this blood vow, your blood of my blood and bone of my bone, and all this stuff that I know I know I'm not reciting the whole thing, and all these book people are going to be like, the best part, but
no, that's not the best part.
No, it's not. So then they're declared husband and wife, and he kisses his bride, and then we're back in the attic room, and he says, when you kissed me like that, I thought maybe you weren't so sorry to be marrying me after all. Got you, Claire. Yeah. So for me in this episode, it was like the little bitty things, and mostly like their hands. Like their hands were great all throughout this episode. They're just like little things that they were doing. And it's right here where she kind of just runs her fingers down the edge of his shirt. Mm-hmm. And it's a big deal because it's like leading into this intimacy that they don't really yet have. And it's fantastic because it's indicating that things are kind of changing with her somewhere inside. Yeah. But then we get down to business again.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, and I mean, I don't know how deep we want to get into this, and I'm not going to, explain exactly what they were doing in bed because there's a chance that my father might hear this. And
yeah, you know what? I really meant to say at the beginning that if my mom is listening to this, even if it's like 10 years from now and she just finds something on the internet, just, Mom, turn it off. Just turn it off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Future employers, please do not listen. But no, I was thinking, it's really clear, I think, in the book how experienced she was versus how inexperienced he was. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of interesting that in this moment you kind of see her take the reins in bed, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And it's so counter to what we normally see, with like the young virgin girl being taken by an older, more experienced man. And I mean, just kind of the way they shoot it, you see his face as things are happening and kind of his sexual awakening, if you will.
Yeah, and it is so different from anything else that's on TV.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like almost... I mean, I try to get guys to watch the show because I think that they would be interested in it. And there is a whole dedicated group of quote-unquote Outlanders, which are men that like the show. But I think that this is this is definitely for women. It's not like on Game of Thrones where you have unnecessary nudity just in the background of like plot exposition to keep people's attention. It's very much like about these characters, and I mean, it's probably one of the most kind of realistic and I think, actual love. It looks like a real loving relationship. And I think that's really...
Oh, you're hitting on so many points and I'm glad you're bringing them up because it is just, it's really not like anything else on TV as far as like just, I guess some people could probably look at this and go, oh, well, it's just more sex on TV, but not in this show. It's not like, not this. This is something very, very different. And it's really refreshing. Like, yeah, it's just, and Game of Thrones is like, I know everybody's comparing it to that. Like, oh, it's the next Game of Thrones. And if you like that, you'll like this, but no.
Yeah.
It's really different. And it's so, like you said, with it being, I don't know, this was definitely, I think I know it was written by a woman, and I think it's kind of written for women. Anyway, It's good. It's
Yeah.
it's just something totally different than anything else I've ever seen on TV. Yeah, there's a lot goes on right here. Yeah, it's. I'm trying to think if there's anything. I'm going through my notes right here. Oh, he does say something great about a naked woman, though. Like, haven't you ever seen a naked woman before? And he says, but not so close and not one that's mine.
Oh, Jamie.
Yeah. So now this right here, and you made a good point about how she is more experienced than him, and they kind of go ahead and show that in certain ways. But in the book, you get her inner monologue about not wanting to appear so experienced. Like, she didn't want him to be thinking about the fact that she's done this before and he hasn't. And, we don't see it so much in this episode. I mean, I think that there were certain things that kind of indicated it, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see. My friend Ollie asked me about that, like wondering why Claire didn't take the reins more than she did. So even though they didn't exactly come out and say it, I think it was because she didn't want him to, be dwelling on that, even though I think he's kind of distracted anyway. But
right. Mind is elsewhere.
Yeah. So interlude number 2, that is what I call that. And then Jamie sleeps and Claire goes downstairs for food, wrapped up in his plaid. God, Claire.
For real, I know that her whole dress would take 86 billion years to put back on, but there had to be something else that she could have thrown on. She had to have her bag with other stuff.
Yeah, she's naked with this thing wrapped around her. She's basically wrapped in a blanket going downstairs, and she doesn't know who's going to be down there.
Right.
Oh, and lo and behold.
Earlier were any sort of indication, that's a terrible plan.
Yeah.
Whatever.
we got Dougal down there. Oh, and we have the cat. I can't forget that. We have the cat. He's
the meat-eating cat.
But Dougal is just back from sharing the news with Jeff Randall.
Mm-hmm. Which is kind of weird. I don't know.
I don't know either. Was she already supposed to be turned over to him by this point? I'm thinking that was the situation.
Yeah, I think that's why they had to hurry up and get married.
Yeah. So maybe he was just saying, you don't get to have her. And she asks how that went. And he says there are likely limits even to your tolerance for language, referencing all of her cursing. Yeah. He's great. He is great. But he's still... He says he commends her for performing her duty, but that it needn't stop her from sampling other pleasures.
And then Claire is super offended by that, which, is kind of not really funny, but it kind of shows how her thinking has changed since the beginning, where she thought that, since she had just slept with Jamie and was still married to Frank, that, she was really having moral issues with it, but now she is 100% devoted to Jamie and saying, I'm Jamie's wife,
Yeah. I can't really say that I blame her.
Yeah.
So that was uncomfortable. And again, I am not sure what to think about all of this. She heads back upstairs. Well, not before Rupert comes in and wishes her a most hearty congratulations on this your wedding day, mistress. I like this guy. He's funny.
Yeah.
I like the way he talks. He makes a pretty saucy comment about her appearance, and Dougal does not appreciate it. And punches him.
Yeah.
Dougal doesn't want to think about the fact that she's been upstairs with Jamie.
Yeah.
It bothers him. I don't know.
He's kind of protective of her almost. Nobody else can talk to her like that, but he can. I don't know.
It's weird. I don't know where they're going with this. Then Claire comes back in and she sits by the window and she's just kind of hanging out. And Jamie finally wakes up and sees her. And he quietly gets up and he goes and retrieves something from his fanny pack. And it's a long string of pearls. And he puts them around her neck. And it's like, great. They're his mother's pearls.
Mm-hmm. So sweet.
I know. He says it's one of the few things that he has left of her and that they're very precious to him, as are you, Claire. Oh. He really, really likes you, Claire. I know that, she's not there yet, but it's really clear that he's had feelings for her for a while. Mm-hmm. And this is just great. So then we get like have interlude number 3. And this is the one where it's like, again, it's not like anything else that's on TV. It's not like gratuitous, just crap. These are 2 married people who, they're getting to know each other because this is way weird. I mean, 24 hours ago, nothing. And now all of this. And to have to go from nothing to something, it's crazy. But they've managed it. Mm-hmm. And
if you were with Jamie, I feel like I could probably manage it.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. So that one's just kind of quiet and fade to blackish, Mm-hmm. And then we have the next morning where they are very, very married. They're just... I know,
they kind of went from, super sensual couple to, almost sitcom mom and dad playful banter before dad hustles off to work in the morning.
Yeah.
It was kind of a weird dynamic change, but it's good,
Yeah, I mean, I think it shows nicely how things like that, whenever you haven't had that sort of intimacy with a person and then you do, how it does on just a really basic level kind of change the way that you interact with them.
Right.
So that, it's the light of day, it's time for breakfast, and all funny little comments about how I'm starving and if I don't get downstairs, I'll have to take a bite out of you. And, oh, Jamie. So he goes downstairs to get his breakfast and Claire shakes out her dress. And out of that dress, her wedding ring falls onto the floor.
From her Frank wedding, not from her Jamie wedding.
Yes, from her Frank wedding. And it looked like, the ring, the one ring.
From the Lord of the Rings, yeah. Right?
As she leaned down to retrieve it, it almost fell down a crack. She retrieves it and we get to see her reflection in it. And... Mm-hmm.
And that scene with it kind of rolling across the floor really mimicked that kind of monologue she had earlier where she talks about cutting a string of pearls and how they roll into corners that you never see again. Mm-hmm. And I honestly thought that she wasn't going to pick it up, because it was never to be seen again, but she does pick it up and puts it back on. So
yeah, and she's looking at both hands. She's got one ring on one hand and one ring on the other, and kind of a decision in front of her. This episode was so well written.
Very much so.
Oh, I gotta look up this person because she knows what she's doing. And the music was great too. Yeah, so we're at the end. That is our final scene.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was, I don't know how you could have asked for anything more. They just did such a good job.
They did, and it kind of stresses me out for next week's episode just because this was at such a high level emotionally, and if it's the mid-season finale, they're going to want to do something, really intense, but can I handle it 2 weeks in a row?
I don't know, and do you watch previews?
I do. I didn't watch the next one.
Okay. Well, hey, people, if you're listening to this and you don't want to hear about a preview, turn it off. But I will go ahead and tell you, it scares me.
Okay.
Like, there's some present day 1940s stuff going on.
Oh, wait, no, I did see that. I totally blocked it out, though, because it stressed me out.
Yeah. I am not looking forward to that. I'm not. I don't want to see those things. I don't want those things to happen. It confuses me because it doesn't match up with a lot of things that I know, and I've got to get over this because I'm gonna like turn into that like angry Game of Thrones fan guy on Twitter.
Right. Please don't be that person.
This is not in the books. No.
Yeah.
I do not want to be that person. But I am scared.
Yeah. Although I think it'll be kind of an interesting storyline. So I'm interested for that. I'm trying to like approach it as if they were two separate entities.
That is a good move. That is a good move. I will try to do the same thing, but I'm worried.
Yeah.
And I think I heard, it's not confirmed yet, but after this next episode, we may not get another one until April.
What?
Yeah.
If you guys want to form a picket line.
I could be in Scotland by April, might do it. I have a friend's wedding, might be going to, and might just have to be back over there. So,
See?
Yeah, I don't want to wait that long.
I can't handle that.
No, it's not cool. But anyway, there we are. 1 week left. This has gone by so quickly. I've enjoyed it thoroughly.
Mm-hmm.
It's really impressive, the whole thing. So, I should probably add this. My friend Ollie tweeted me that she needs a Dougal wedding ceremony after this for reasons that I'm thinking. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe you'll get it. Maybe someday. Well, this has been fantastic, Marissa. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. This has been fun, and I'm so glad that, you are watching the shows, because so many of my friends are not, just because Starz isn't really, a typical channel that a lot of people have. And then a lot of people I know are like, oh, I'm just not into romance, and then I punch them until they like romance.
Oh, how could someone who truly knows you think that you would that just doesn't make sense to me, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not into, typical romance. I mean, it's not like a Nicholas Sparks book that we're watching here. It's adventure and action and fighting and blood and then love.
And time travel. Time travel. That's my favorite thing. I'm kind of crazy about time travel.
Yeah. I know that about you.
Yeah. So, there we are. And maybe next spring, if I haven't died of waiting for the show to come back, we can talk again.
Yes, let's do it.
All right. Okay, well, that is this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. You can follow us on Twitter at PS Petticoats. You can find us on Facebook and on our blog, which is elizabeth-michelle.com/PSP. And it's a long one, I know. I need to get a different one. So, we will see you guys next week when we're talking about the mid-season finale, and I can't wait. All right. See you later.
We will go, I and you, and away in the woods we will scatter the dew, and the salmon behold, and the ouzel too. My love, we will hear, I and you, we will hear the calling afar of the doe and the deer, and the birds in the branches will cry for us clear, and the cuckoo unseen in his festival mood and death, oh my fair one, will never come near. In the bosom afar of the fragrant wood, in the bosom afar of the fragrant wood.